We grow more and more complex to solve problems. This is an escalation dynamic, and it's the same dynamic as in an arms race. In the world of complex systems, to use a colloquial expression, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Complexity always has a cost, and ultimately the cost is paid in terms of energy.
We've never had a year like this where it's been so dry and so hot, wildfires, record rainfalls other places. If they think it's going to keep getting worse on a relative scale to what we've seen this year, that's probably what may happen, and sort of a scary thing to think about.
Our lawyer's not the biggest liar, our weatherman's the biggest liar, because he'll tell us we've got 80% chance of rain and we get a sprinkle, and we get a 30% chance of rain, we'll end up with 2 inches of rain. We're flooded.
I've just been so close to breaking down and crying, and this is what, you know, is just really brings it on, is this pasture. I mean, there's really nothing of value here for a cow to eat.
And when these crops were at this stage last year, our wells were out of water. We were fighting tooth and nail just to try to keep these crops alive and keep them going, just to produce any kind of crop.
You know, it takes eons for topsoil to develop from decaying vegetation. One of my neighbors made the comment in his old rocky ranch that he had about 1 inch of topsoil that between him and starvation. And you have to protect it with the grasses and don't overgraze it. And we're totally dependent upon the rainfall.
Without dirt, I'm done. I'm over with. They might as well just go ahead and call people in, tell them to dig me a 6-foot hole, put me in a box, and call it good.
That's sort of the weather mantra in Central Texas: drought, 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 flood.
The term that everybody uses is just brutal. Where we would normally see honey stores and pollen stores for them getting ready for the upcoming winter time, there was nothing in there because all of the natural water sources had dried up. When drought affects our natural pollinators, it has a horrible effect on our environment and our food supplies.
It just sucks your soul dry.
Water is the new oil, and it's become a commodity just like oil rights and mineral rights used to be for Texas. And the battle, the competition is just going to get more intense as more and more people move here, and it gets hotter and drier and stays that way.
Responding to climate change in the area of farming is another arena in which society in the future is going to experience increasing costs and diminishing returns.
We know that the consequences of the industrialized world are going to place a great burden upon our children, and we have to do something now. But it does raise a question, even though we're aware of all these consequences, why are we still not radically changing our behavior?
The fact that we're culture-creating individuals means that we create our own sense of psychology and our own sense of values and our own sense of what's important.
Vai in Hawaii means values. So you can see this is our values. This is what we value, the vai, the water, the source of life. What is important, what's going to sustain us, where the water is coming from, how the water is managed and used.
They have a legacy of the land that they inhabit, and they think of themselves as being part of the land, continuous in the land, and that therefore they should, what they do now really defines who they are.
We're creating the world that's creating us all the time.
What do we do by way of reproducing to have a culture that carries on in the future? We don't just produce babies, we send them to school, and we instill in them the norms of the culture and the knowledge of the culture.
The huge engine of consumerism was driving and became the economic and cultural raison d'etre of our lives as Americans, and the American dream became defined as what you owned, what you had.
And you start thinking, there's something wrong with the car I have, or the house I have, or the spouse I have. I mean, there is this sense of that we're entitled to the next best thing.
You know, we're socialized and we're existing in a cultural context. That cultural context shapes us and constrains us.
Strategic locations ensure repetition, and repetition creates consumer remembrance, driving home a message. Not once, not twice, but many times, thus bridging the gap between the manufacturer and the consumer.